Amicus. I would have thought
Do,
it
do
was
you
like
need mine?
Amicus. Cotton.
Make sure you phonetically say it right.
Yes.
Correct, correct.
All
I
right.
think you need to make sure you put emphasis on the correct syllable.
I love that. Yes.
Syllable. Well, hello
Syllable.
everyone, and happy Tech Talk Tuesday. It's Tuesday, February 17th, 1 o'clock Central Time, the best time zone there is. And we are excited today to be joined with some friends of the industry, as well as some other new co-hosts today. Scott Roseberry and Will Brocious were unavailable. Duty calls when you're an active fire service member. Sometimes the job pulls you away to do your job as a fire service member. So we're excited today to be joined with our other co-hosts, Chad Kraus and Corey Claiborne, who will introduce themselves shortly. But today we're going to be talking about closing the loop on compliance with automated workflows and verified data. We've got Jill Cotton and Nick Amicus from Bricer, who are going to talk shop about some exciting news on the recent merger between iRoll and Bricer and kind of what that means for all things community risk reduction, data, third-party reporting in the industry. And again, reminder for everyone listening, this show is for you to selfishly ask questions. Look at LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching this, and ask questions. It's always great to have it come in to fire it away. So we'll do kind of quick intros because maybe there are some kind of new faces, and then I'll throw it to Corey and Chad to kind of get us going here. But we'll do, why don't Nick and Jill both do kind of quick 30-second intros, and then Chad and Corey will do intros and tee up the show. So
Sure.
Jill, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everybody, Jill Cotton. I'm formerly the president and co-founder of Inspection Reports Online, or iRoll, and now I am the executive vice president of Bricer. So excited to talk a little bit about that transition and share a little bit more about our synergies and alignment and why we came together. So just super excited to be here and appreciate it.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nick Amicus, Vice President at Bricer on the business development side. Been with Bricer for 10 years now. So it's been a very exciting time and very, very excited about the future, especially with the partnership in the acquisition of iRoll, Bricer joining forces. And so, Kevin, thanks to you today, and Chad and Corey, thanks to you. And to my new colleague Jill, it's been a pleasure so far. So really
Yeah, it
excited what
really
the
has
future
been.
holds.
Me
Right
too.
on. Well, Chad and Corey, for those of us who haven't heard from you as frequently as maybe would like, give us high-level intros on you guys, and then let's tee up this conversation around all things third-party reporting, CRR. So, Chad, you go
Well,
first.
well, Corey, I just want to point out that he did call us a B team. With I don't know if you
It's
picked
not
up on
right.
that.
Terrible.
I definitely got that vibe. My name's Chad Kraus. I'm an operations battalion chief out of St. Lucie County, Florida. Previously was an admin, community risk reduction, IT, a lot of tech things, and I'm currently the chair for the subcommittee on AI with the IAFC, and just very interested in this as a topic because we've been with Bricer for a long time, but I'm curious to just find out more about how this is going to help our fire district with those two coming together. I'm very excited to hear from it.
Thanks, Chad. Now, to be fair, Scott wanted us to actually introduce you as him and see how many people actually picked up on the fact that he wasn't on this, but Kevin decided not to roll that way. Be honest, which is always the best policy. My name is Corey Claiborne. I'm the co-chair of the IFC Tech Council. I'm also the fire marshal for Wiley, Texas, so a little town outside of Dallas. We're a little four-station department. Here, I've been with the department for 20 years. Started up in operations, was a special ops captain, battalion chief, and then a couple years ago they moved me over to prevention, and been trying to figure out how to make this whole thing work with not enough staffing, not enough people, and you know, trying to find good solutions like Bricer and iRoll. Well, actually, let me just so are y'all Bricer or y'all iRoll? What I'm going to throw that right now. What do
Yeah,
we call
no.
you guys?
We are Bricer. So
You
that
are Bricer.
yes. And so, right now we still have two separate platforms, and we'll talk about the tech stack in just a little bit, but we are all one Bricer. So I'm excited again to kind of share more about that kind of story and how it came to be, because I think it's important. It's an important story to share. So
The blue and orange, I'm a bit biased because I went to Illinois, played football there, and Chicago Bears fan too.
Yeah.
Kevin, I know you love that. Bit
Why are
biased
you
on
throwing stones?
bit biased on the orange and blue, but the orange and blue does look really good on Jill. So
Thank you.
that's been
I'm
pretty
also a
good.
Bears fan too, so I mean, hey. Sorry, Kev.
Okay, I let it slide.
So when we talk about the market and stuff, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Specifically for Brycer. I've talked to quite a few people lately about it. Nobody knows Brycer. Everybody calls it by a different name.
The compliance engine.
The compliance engine. That
Yeah.
is,
Yep.
in fact, I believe
So
that's even like on some software, another agency software, and some other stuff.
it's a great question. Since we started in 2011, Matt Rice and Brian Schultz, Matt Rice being our CEO and Brian Schultz being our co-founder, it was confusing maybe at times, right? Because I remember being the only sales rep at Brycer back in 2015, and I'd be like, "Hey, this is Nick from Brycer." I'd also say, "Hey, this is Nick from the Compliance Engine." So to set the record straight, it is Brycer is the company name, and the Compliance Engine is the technology and service that we are providing to 1,700 plus jurisdictions on the fire department side, public works, public utility side, and as well as some state departments tracking conveyance type systems, escalators, chairlifts, elevators, dumbwaiters, you name it. But Corey, it's a great question you ask. And so we'll answer to both, just like I'll answer to both Nicholas and Nick, but Nick is definitely preferred.
Okay.
I love that. I always say it's the catalyst, right? The platform is the catalyst that delivers. And, just like in IRL was Inspection Reports Online, everybody just went by IRL. So the platform's the platform, right? That's the tech stack that we use.
So I wanted to talk about just generally this third-party reporting and what the overall mission is as a company. Brycer and iRoll come together. What's your mission, and how's technology shaping that as everybody's kind of in this accelerated moment here where AI is taking place and more data analytics than ever? Like, what's the mission now?
Sure. So I think in order to answer that, we have to go back just a little bit, right? And talk a little bit first about answering that first part is, how do we come together? So, about 3 years ago, IRL actually formed a partnership with Building Reports. And, part of my role as a president and co-founder of a company is to always be on the look for these changes. And I love that you brought up AI, right? The service is changing, fire service is changing, technology is changing. And so we're already on this path of understanding how do we continue to, meet the needs, the growing needs, not only of the communities that we serve, but this industry. And so it was about that time that we started having these conversations that kind of Brycer came to the table. And, for people who know us, we have been competitors for 15 years. But I always like to kind of share an even backer story that many people don't know. So Brian Schultz, the president of Brycer, his family ran a company called Total Fire in Illinois. My family, so my father and his business partners ran Aurora Tri-State. So we've actually been competitors well before this, I say going back to the 80s. And so what's really fascinating is that we both saw an issue when it comes to, systems being the first line of defense. And how do you connect people? How do you connect people to information? And then coming up with these two separate platforms. And so just kind of looking at where we are currently headed, we just align more than we don't. And I'm going to use the concept of community risk reduction, right? Community risk reduction is a process that allows us to identify and prioritize local risks, right? And part of that process is we have to look very deep under our hoods. We have to use data, right? And then that data and looking at that drives where we build relationships or sometimes rebuild. And then, of course, it has that significant outcome piece. And so that's exactly the exact same reason and way that IRL and Brycer joined forces. And now, right, we get to take proven proven methods that we've been using, both of our companies, for the past 15 years, and bring them together. And that includes challenging what we know doesn't work, and then again continuing to serve and meet these growing needs. So it's fascinating how much it emulates that community risk reduction process and why we came together. But I'll let Nick talk a little bit about the mission, because I think that's important. The technology drives the mission, but I think our missions have always been aligned in that this is about building safe and resilient communities, and technology is the path to do that. But I'll let kind of Nick jump in on that as well.
Jill, it's extremely well said. And Chad, we've been partners with St. Lucie County Fire District for quite some time, right? And our mission, when we partnered with you all down in Florida, 10 plus years ago to where it is today, and where it was in our inception in 2011, ultimately it's simple. It's to keep people safe, to keep your fire personnel safe, and people that are visiting, working, touring, living in your communities safe, right? We were always curious, how do these authority having jurisdictions, these AHJs, keep track of data? And by data, we're referring to, what fire protection systems are working and or not working in your communities. What buildings do we know about in your communities, and what buildings do we not know about? And we learned that it was a very antiquated process early on. And for some departments, it still is.
Mm-hmm.
So a goal of the mission was definitely to get things up to the 21st century, right? A bit more efficient. And by providing a very good technology, service, tools, and resources, not just to the fire prevention bureaus that we work with and the community risk reduction teams that we work with, but also your operations teams and just the fire department as a whole. One of the really cool things that I've personally learned in my background, I used to work for Tyco Integrated Security. Tyco is no longer a company. They got bought out by Johnson Controls, but I'd go out there and go do site visits to properties. And so ultimately, missions to keep people safe, but also provide you all as the AHJs very good tools, resources, technology, and services. And that's what we pride ourselves on.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I wanted to mention is just the efficiency gain of having you come on board. St. Lucie County, very rapidly growing community, a lot of structures in, a lot of things going on. And of course, like Corey mentioned, having a limited staff. When you have 12,000 inspections that have to be done annually, it really puts a drain on what they can do. Can they get out to the operations folks, talk to them, meet them on pre-incident planning, which is kind of what when I was over community risk reduction, that's what I wanted my inspectors to do more of, is bring operations into the fold, talk to them about symptoms, talk to them about things. But when they're just, trudged down with a bunch of these other things, then that takes away that time. So no, I think it's been a great product for us. One of the questions I have is, how are you gearing it more towards operations? Now that I kind of brought that up, like, how does the firefighter on the end of the nozzle, the company officer getting off the fire engine, what is it that they can look forward to?
I think this is such an amazing question, because to be honest, I think sometimes when you think about third party or even community risk reduction in general, operation seems a little bit removed from that. But I'll use two examples. Number one, false alarms. Think about all the resources that are used by the fire department every time there is a false alarm. In some areas, that's, the station showing up, it's people leaving, so again, it's human, it's capital. But what reduces false alarms? Inspection, testing, and maintenance, right? So there's that piece of it. And then there's the bigger piece, the piece that sometimes we don't talk about. And so I recently presented to, the Cal chiefs, the ops chiefs there. I had to do it virtually, but I brought up pictures of recent, unfortunate, large and deadly fires. And I said, the sad thing about this, but it's the reality, is that all of these have a common theme, and that is lack of inspections, especially system inspections, right? We didn't know about it, or we knew about it too late. So I think when we think about our role or what is operations, everybody thinks, oh, it's the response, it's showing up, it's putting out the fire. But isn't the point then to know about it beforehand? Shouldn't we be able to do recon and have an understanding of what is happening in that building before it ever even gets to that point? And so one of the things that I know a lot of my friends, and probably Kevin has heard me say before, is, it is, what year are we in? 2026. How are we not going directly to the sources of the information that we need when we as fire departments can't get it, right? We have limited human and capital resources. So when you talk about third party, right, you are now collaborating with people who are in and out of your buildings more than you are, your service contractors, right? And that feeds in data that brings awareness, right? It's situational awareness. You want to talk about one of the most impactful way to reduce risk. You implement technology and services that bring all of these people together. And that is, I think, a lot of the times the missing piece that operations forgets about, which is why, I'm such a prevention and community risk reduction advocate, because that's what, we're trying to do, is prevent and reduce risk.
And Chad, continually as well on the operations side, authority having jurisdictions, let it be if they're using a pre-planned solution where it's still on pen and paper, or they're using some sort of record management system like EPR systems, Fireworks, First Do, Streamline Automation, ESO, Image Trend, APX Data. There's so many out there. Emergency networking, which we integrate with, and we're excited to say that. The pre-plan is a huge focus as well, because data that Bricer collects, statuses of systems in your buildings. Hey, is there a fire sprinkler system that is working properly? It's in compliance, or is that fire sprinkler system, is it deficient? Are there issues on it? Are there impairments on that? When we partner with jurisdictions, we're able to feed that information directly to authority having jurisdictions pre-plan solutions. And so, no pun intended here, but when people are first due in, they can get a good look at what they are getting into. And that's valuable information to have. One of the really cool things that I learned about during this acquisition of iRoll is iRoll has a pre-planned solution. And we're really excited to see if that can be a good fit for jurisdictions going forward. It just gives them another opportunity, right? We're still going to partner and have our integrations with other
Absolutely.
RMS systems, because that's just the right thing to do. The whole interoperability of data and talking to other vendors and other solutions. But also, I want to give just a quick story. Jill touched on this on the false alarm side. We had the opportunity to work with Chief Scoggins, Karen Grove, and their team with Seattle, Washington, in the Seattle Fire Department. One of the things that we were able to actually look at after Bricer, Corey, I was about to say the compliance engine, but after Bricer, the
Call it.
compliance engine.
I know what it is. I'm just one of those.
It's one, isn't it?
Right. After Bricer was implemented, Seattle saw a decrease in their false alarms. And that's because of the inspection, testing, and maintenance of these fire alarm systems. Now the AHJ, and speaking of the Seattle Fire Department, they had the data right at their fingertips, and they had a better way of tracking this information. And to take it a step further, on the operation side as well, Chad and Corey, Kevin and Jill, and everyone else who's listening, that's going to reduce the wear and tear on your trucks, your rigs, your apparatuses. It's going to keep people safe and alive when you're responding to these types of calls. And so it's really cool to see the work that we're doing as it relates to the fire operations side of the house. Because, I was in such a silo, and I think Jill could probably speak to it too early on, where it's like, it's just fire prevention, it's just CRR. But now it's like, hey, look at all this, look at all these different ways it's going to. And that's been really cool to see.
I go back to something too, that whole idea of situational awareness. When you have information coming to you, right, it's the ability to determine if you need to respond. And I call it the trickle out effect, right? It's one thing to have that awareness, or my buddy Jack Murphy, right, will say the recon. We need to be able to do some recon. What do we know is happening in this building? What else I love about the platform and this process is we are able to deliver a lot of unknowns, right? We're able to help identify either, locations that you have not inspected in sometimes years. We know usually about a business that changes, name or contact way quicker than most fire departments do. So when it comes to that kind of data, that's a whole nother aspect, of operations and having that awareness of what really is happening in that building. And, go again back to pre-plan. I think that is another, kind of program that's not used as much. And I will say, and thank you, because our pre-plan program and inspection program is hands down fantastic, and so we're trying. I know a lot of people like to hear that whole one under the hood. I'm not necessarily sold on that. I think I'm more about the best of, right? Somebody wrote, how do you integrate? And Nick already alluded to this. It's, we stay in our lane because this is the best of what we do, but it's important to share that data, right? You have to be able to share the data between legacy programs. And absolutely, most technology these days can. And I think that's really important. And again, that goes to the bigger picture of everybody across the department should have an understanding of what is happening out in their community.
And I love the idea of getting your data on a single pane in front of me as a incident commander, being able to see that we're responding to this building, but maybe the sprinkler system is out. That sort of information completely changes. And to be able to not have to go in another program, but have those integrations is really, really important. I'm going to get into some of these questions, if you guys don't mind. We have some coming in here.
Yeah.
This one's from LinkedIn. It says, from an operational perspective, how are you measuring success once third-party reporting system workflows are implemented? You talked about Seattle. What were those numbers? Kind of what are your outcomes that you're looking?
Yeah. And so with Seattle, they were actually able to provide us with data that they collected internally for pre-implementation of Bricer and the compliance engine, the technology and service, and then post. And simply, it was just the call volumes that they saw when the compliance engine, when Bricer was implemented. And then I believe it was a year later, they looked at that difference. And I actually have a graph that I'd be happy to share with the team, or Kevin can share it with you. But if anybody has seen me present before, it's one of those slides that we tend to like to show because it does show that success as it pertains to an operational perspective. And to take it a step further as well, Austin, Texas. Jill and I were also talking about this morning. Austin, Texas, what we do with our solution, our services, we use Esri, we take maps of a jurisdiction, and we actually pinpoint in geocode what buildings are past due or have a deficiency on them and what buildings are compliant. The past due and deficiencies, they get marked with an orange flame. The compliant ones, they get marked with a blue shield. In Texas, in one of the bigger jurisdictions, we started at a low number, and it's just because the data, not everyone has a good process internally before Bricer gets implemented. And what we saw from year 1 to year 4 is we went from 11% compliance to 41 to 71 to 88% compliance in a city that's over 1 million people in population. And I'll give kudos to Rhoda Kerr. She's retired now, and but she was a huge advocate of what we were doing, and she saw what we did in Los Angeles and was like, hey, I think we can do this as well in Austin, Texas. And so there's things like that as well. How do we measure success? We measure it just by the number of compliant buildings versus buildings that have some sort of issue on them or might be past due for the inspection, testing, and maintenance.
And I'll feed. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Jen. I was going to say I'm going to feed into that a little bit more, right? Because I think this whole aspect of data, one of the most fascinating things about it is, we've been doing this for 15 years. For 15 years, we've been going in and out of departments. And one of the questions that we ask is, how many occupancies do you have? Out of those occupancies, how many have systems? What types of systems do they have? But most importantly, are they functioning? And in 15 years, I can count maybe on one hand how many departments actually have those answers when we walk in. It's very slim to none. So what's fascinating, right, is to go into departments, and I'll use like Fort Wayne, Indiana, because we happen to be in Indiana right now. When we first started collaborating with Fort Wayne, they were getting some of these through email, some information, in snail mail, but barely anything at all. And within 1 to 2 years, you're seeing a 300% increase in the information that's coming at them. And it's not just about compliance. Compliance is like a high goal, but again, it's that, how do you change behavior, right? How do you have a business owner, for example, who is constantly, either deficient or maybe doesn't have their systems inspected at all, to slowly change their behavior and understanding that them having their system service actually saves more time and cost in the long run, and them being proactive about it. That's where some of these numbers also come in place. And the reason why is something we haven't yet talked about, is because we're not just technology. This isn't just software. It's also service. It is how. How are we helping educate? How are you helping bring consistency to a process? And that is something that Bricer does extremely well, right? Through our review program, through, the ability to look at additional data, through the virtual walkthrough. So there's all these different areas that we are able to collect data that a lot of traditional, software platforms aren't. And a lot of it is because of the additional services and the people that we have to help in this process. And I think that's extremely important to talk about.
And I think you may have kind of answered the second question, which was kind of a follow-up. It's like, what's the workflow in order to be able to take these nuisance alarms, these false alarms, and how are you getting real reductions? How are you getting compliance out of that? What's the workflow? How is tech assisting you in that now?
Chad, it's funny. I was reading that as well, as Jill was kind of like hitting it right in the head too. So really good transition there. When it comes to hard to reach owners, we are very, very familiar with that. And one of the things that I would say as an industry, but one of the things that we had to learn early on is we need to have a good solution in getting to the right people. And when we send out
You
notifications,
mean the front desk isn't the right person?
well,
Or the
sometimes
cashier?
when I'm prospecting, sometimes those gatekeepers and those front desk admins are a little bit hard to get around. So I haven't tried with yours, Corey, and Wiley in quite some time, but I'm gonna have to do that again soon. But how we get to find who those right people are, we send our notifications out first class mail via the USPS, so United States Postal Service. We track if the notices have actually gotten delivered. We also send notifications out via email, and I would say roughly 70% of the notifications that we send out today, as of February 17th, 2026, are via email, and also tracking, hey, has it been opened? Has it been delivered? Did it fail? So now we have to send it out via postage. And on top of that, I mean, Jill, I've been saying this for years, at Bricer, but there are times where notifications, let it be first class mail and or emails, they don't work. And I know I'm guilty of it. Corey, I know you're guilty of this too. We get things in the mail, right, at our homes or at our offices that we throw away right away. We get emails that we don't even look at. We delete them right away.
Should I wrote rules to do that for me so I don't even have to delete them?
Exactly. Properties and key holders and responsible persons, they do the same thing. And what we figured out as well is, okay, is there another element to get to those hard to reach people? And that next element is phone calls. Making phone calls, it's from a call center that we have internally at Brycer, and it's checking on stuff that's past due or following up on a deficiency that was reported by a local contractor, a ITM company, inspection, testing, and maintenance company. But it's making those phone calls. And I will say, we do get some great collaboration with the AHJs themselves, let it be if it's a deputy fire marshal, an inspector who is out trying to get contact info. We also get this from contractors and those local ITM companies. In other ways we do it are actually through our processes. And again, it goes back to the service at Brycer, where we look for who are the best contacts. We use some proprietary software applications where it aggregates commercial real estate information. Because how we put food on our table is by doing our job. And our job is to make sure that we're communicating with these people who are responsible to get their systems inspected, tested, and maintained. So, for the second question on how do we get to hard to reach contacts and hard to reach owners, it's a lot of different ways, but we feel very confident that we have a great solution to be able to do so.
And I'm going to jump in and be a little bit vulnerable here, maybe bring some humility to this process, because, as a former competitor, this is where early on, where IRL, instead of taking that call center approach, we created that review program, our review department, right? So that is where we have current and or retired fire personnel who take on a lot of the heavy lifting off of our AHJs, right? So I always say it's like gaining an inspector, right? We review all of that data. We take the process of making sure there's a contact name, phone number, email, that the information is accurate, and then we provide the remediation process up to a certain point. But again, going back to the growing needs, right? Going back to understanding, how do you constantly shift your services to fit that? And that is one area I will tell you that especially, and actually it's not just our large metros, honestly, it's also the smaller, departments who it's one person doing everything or two people doing everything, going, hey, we're still having issues finding that correct person, or we still need better data. Can you start to do this? And a lot of it was pick up the phone or, use additional technology like our SRAs or, other platforms, again, proprietary stuff that we do to find that data and information. And again, with IRL's current process, that's not what we did. That was not what we did well. That's what Brycer did well. So, when now joining forces, just think of how we can modify our services to fit the exact needs, again, of the communities that we're serving. In some areas, they don't want the letters. Great, let's just do all electronic. In others, they only want a phone call in this specific situation, right? So the ability to adapt our processes to fit those needs are so extremely important. And again, I go back to, IRL's been doing that program for over a decade. Brycer has been doing their outreach for over a decade. We know what works, right? And then the ability to look at what hasn't worked between both of our, companies and modify that accordingly. There is no other platform and no other company that has the most proven and strategic processes for those outcomes. So it's super exciting to be able to sit down at the table and talk about this. But the other big key to this is that we loop in our partners, right? We develop and we do all of these by having conversations such as this. Like, Chad, what you do, right, is completely different than what Corey does. You might have similar challenges, but your communities are different, right? And that's something that we take into consideration. I think is extremely important, right? Looping back to people. So just wanted to kind of expand on that as well.
So you're saying that just because Chad wears flip-flops to work and I have to wear cowboy boots to work,
Right.
we're different?
Totally. Absolutely.
I'd like to point out that we were under 30 degrees in South Florida and iguanas died, and there's a lot of palm trees that are dead. And it was.
I've never had an
Don't
iguana hit
even
me on
rub
the
that
head.
in.
Just gonna
Right.
say.
Me neither. Thank goodness. Actually, I don't know.
Welcome to how everyone else lives, Chad, because it's been cold all over the place. I will say though, in Indianapolis, it's going to be 70 degrees tomorrow. And so us in the Midwest, we are jumping
We're
for
living it
joy.
up. Yeah,
I
we
can't
are.
jump too high, but you can slide paper under under my air that I get.
I love it.
So kind of hitting the questions again, I'm going to make just a quick comment on, there's a question about integration and, well, and full disclosure, because Nick's going to hate me after I say this, but I ended up going with a different company. But
Yep.
that doesn't matter at this point.
We can still be friends. It's okay.
I
We still
hope
support
so.
you.
Maybe.
So, ran through a lot of the stuff, and the first thing that the question about integration and data sharing that I've seen so far is we keep looking at data integration from the fire department side. How do I get my data to my RMS or to my CAD software or to all that stuff? Completely overlooking the fact that Cintas has their own reporting software. So does every other contractor out there. So having one of these key points, this becomes your clearinghouse. It's a lot easier to work with Bricer to actually integrate into any of your software platforms than it is trying to get data that you're trying to fill in from, almost like raindrops coming in at you from every direction, that everybody does it slightly differently. So even if you never integrated this software, in my opinion, from one of these services to somebody else's, to your stuff, you still have one place you can go look for, where beforehand, honestly, I couldn't tell you where stuff I may got an email, I may got a phone call
Or
when I had a
nothing.
system going down, or nothing. And
Or nothing.
nothing was probably the most common. And
Yep.
in the last 6 months of us really going through this, us trying to retrain all of the contractors in the area has been a joy. Most of them are good with it, but it really is, getting people advised up that you've got to do it. And uh, I could say from us, it was the part of my problem was we couldn't tell you who our vendors were that were working in our city because I didn't have that data.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do now, or I'm getting it now. I know, Chad, before y'all integrated Bricer, could you have had any idea who was working in your city?
Yeah,
For
especially for us being countywide in the different municipalities. So even if I wanted to look at contractors' licenses, you're going to multiple municipalities, the city of Port St. Lucie, the city of Fort Pierce, St. Lucie County. And that was kind of what I was thinking about is how much time and effort goes into collecting all of that. And again, every fire department, I mean, if you're a department that has resources for days, congratulations. I don't think that's many of us. So having that legwork done and just answering basic questions like, how many occupancies do we have that have this system? How many are in compliance? How many aren't? That really starts to go to gearing that message towards, what is community risk? And so data is one thing, but what are you going to do with it? And so now that you have this information, are you targeting specific types of occupancies? Are you, what's a good story from one of your customers about true risk reduction steps that they've been able to take from that data?
I would so I know we went a few different ways there, and Jill, I definitely want you to talk about the relationship that you have with building reports as a inspection, testing, and maintenance software. Chad, to answer your question directly, a really good example actually as it relates to risk reduction, and hopefully one of them are on this call listening in. It would actually come from Oklahoma City, and they have a few key staff members in there. Prince Morgan, Dominic Brown. I think everyone knows Richard Kelly in his very colorful shirts when he's at a conference or a trade show. So it's easy to spot him, as it's probably easy to spot me at times at events, and or Jill. But one of the things that they did with Bricer is, hey, we want to be able to identify certain types of occupancies in Oklahoma City, but also be able to put risk levels on them, low, medium, high. And one of the things that we do in OKC is identifying, okay, apartment type complexes, those R2s and other types of occupancies. Now we have a very good way to be able to reduce the risk that those types of buildings and those types of occupancies face. And we do that for all the other types of occupancies. And that was something that Chief Morgan, Prince Morgan, came to us and was like, hey, I have this idea. Can you make it work? And we kicked it around internally at Brycer and we made it work. And we do similar things for the city of Los Angeles. City of Los Angeles was our first major metropolitan partner. And we wouldn't be here today. Jill and I would not have had the opportunity to partner and work together, without a city like Los Angeles believing in this back in 2014, 2015. So I would say, Chad, Oklahoma City is a great example as it comes to reducing the risk. And when it comes to the inspection softwares that contractors use, we have integrations with InspectPoint, Service Trade, Ember Software, Fire Inspect,
Building report.
Uptick, building reports. And how we identify where contractors are at, Corey, I do have a bone to pick, and that will be sometime later when I see you in person the next time. But for example, though, like we recently just partnered with the city of Dallas, Fort Worth, and we have all of our partnerships in the DFW Metroplex. And one of the biggest benefits that a city like Wiley would have had and will have, I think, is the ability to say, hey, a lot of those same contractors we already know about, and we go to state lists and licenses lists because we track license types out there of who's doing the work. So it does do a lot of legwork, but hey, better Brycer to do the legwork than Corey having your team do it, or Chad having your team do it.
I'm gonna also jump in, going back, Corey, to your statement about the contractors, because here's the reality, right? This isn't just about you. These programs are not just about the AHJ. It absolutely is about the contractors and, of course, the bigger picture, the entire community. These programs have to bring substantial amount of benefit to the contractors as well. And I will tell you from, again, two companies being in this industry, we created these businesses out of our frustrations as former contractors. IRO and Brycer are the only two platforms out there that combined now have the most expertise, not only from an AHJ perspective, but also from a service perspective. And that is extremely important to understand. The other thing that us coming together did is it allowed us to expand on our additional people, processes, and technologies for the contractors. If you don't think we listen to what they need to be successful, we absolutely do. I mean, I think that's really important. And I always tell contractors, and this is where education is extremely important, right? So we just implemented in Clark County, Las Vegas, a whole valley, right? So it's a new program in that area. So what we do, right, is you go be in front. You go and educate the contractors on what community risk reduction is, their role in that process, because they also get tunnel vision, right? They only focus on their customers, that they don't realize what you see from that 30,000 view. So when you start to break that down and you start to really educate and say, listen, I always tell contractors, nobody wants to sustain business more than those who enforce the code. So here's what's really ironic about codes and standards. What is the one area in the fire service that we control the most? It's codes and standards.
Right.
So for contractors, right, you are in a code-driven business. So it's just like speeding, right? We all speed, but when you get caught, don't get mad about it, right? So you are in a code-driven business. And so when we're able to now enforce that code, but it benefits you probably the most, that's a totally different conversation. And they start seeing that because you see the frequency of repairs increase, you see overall service increase, but again, it's the process, right? And it's the additional services and solutions that you are providing to those contractors, which to my knowledge, Brycer, IRO and Brycer joining, we are now the only company that has a full division solely focused on contractors to do just that, to help them be successful in their efforts in fire and life safety. And I think that is so critical to this whole, process and program.
next week we have a meeting with Chattanooga, Tennessee, and meeting with their contractors, and Jill's going to be down there leading it with a few of our other Brycer employees. Corey, Chad, Kevin, the biggest benefit that the contractors in ITMs, inspection testing and maintenance companies, the biggest benefit they get out of this is an increase in their inspection, testing, and maintenance revenue. On average, we see that these companies, let it be if it is a Cintas, a Johnson Controls, a Pye Barker, a Western States, a BFPE, a Corson, a Red Hawk, a Bay Alarm. I mean, there's over 25,000 contractors that are submitting through the compliance engine today. The biggest benefit they get is an increase in their inspection, testing, and maintenance revenues. You're going to have some that are still against this whole process. But the 180 and maybe even, I don't know if you want to say 540, 720, whatever it is, the flip that contractors have now, they're now bringing us into different jurisdictions and saying, hey, this is being instituted over here. This is a great thing for us, but it's also a great thing for you as the AHJ because of the compliance. We never dreamed that we would have that opportunity to work with people back in 2011. We had a lot of feedback from people saying, hey, this isn't going to work. Well, we can sit here 15, 16 years later and say, hey,
show them the data.
This has worked, and it's been pretty darn cool to get the feedback. And and we support people like the NFSA, AFSA, NFPA. I know Jill has a lot of strong ties to the NFPA personnel and a lot of other associations. And we're very unique to that, which we're excited about.
It's also right. I teach a lot on community risk reduction being the catalyst to support and strengthen codes and standards. Right. I mean, this is personally, I think, one of the most single-handed best solutions that you can implement for both community risk reduction. I mean, look at all the additional benefits, ISO accreditation, and it's because, again, that trickle out effect, right? It impacts so many other areas of what we're trying to do at the same time, allowing you to collaborate with so many more people through technology, right? So it's technology that serves the mission, not the other way around. And I think that's a very important, piece of this. So
I love that you bring that up, because one of the things as departments grow, they need to be more active in public policy and kind of setting those tones. We made some resolution changes in St. Lucie County to deal with electric vehicles and parking garages a little bit ahead, right? We made some changes to special events. As you start growing, and there's a lot of areas across the country that are growing rapidly, you can't just hope that things don't go wrong. You have to get active in policy and kind of put some standards together. And then I think this is a great opportunity for some of those departments struggling to kind of manage all of this, to really have all that to come in and say, well, here's the time. Because when you're 30,000 occupancies, it's way harder than when you're 10,000. Like, if you're
for sure.
Very, very difficult. I want to ask the question, like, what's around the corner? Like, you've come together as a company, like, what's on the horizon 5 years from now? What would be amazing in your industry?
I think, just initially, right, this was part of the joining forces. IRL had services and solutions and processes that Brycer didn't. Brycer also had the same thing. And so now joining forces, we are able to combine the best of both. And I want to be very clear that that is the goal. The goal is to combine our technologies, but we are taking the time intentionally to do just that, bring the best of both, right? And so even for contractors, right, that's one less platform to submit to. But that's also continuing to focus on staying in our lane of what solutions make the most, impact. So pre-planned inspections, we right now have the country's only food truck registration and inspection program. And guess what? That includes third-party reporting, right? Systems on those trucks have to be inspected, tested, and maintained. So, those are some of the, in the next few years, but there's always stuff, I think, up our sleeves. And I don't want to, release things too soon about some other things that are happening for contractors and your businesses.
Smart.
to also participate. But I would be on the lookout for some things that, again, it goes back to listening, right? We can't grow if we don't listen to the needs of those that we serve. And again, it's not just fire departments, it's also the contractors and the businesses. So that's something that I think both companies have done really well, is being able to listen so we can grow.
You can
And
share it. Just say spoiler alert in front of it.
no,
It is a
we can't,
spoiler alert,
can't
but I
do
can't.
that. That's like giving away
Yeah.
our secret
I
sauce.
know,
Like
and I'm
we
not.
can't do that
I'm
yet.
so excited. I'm so
I would say too, and this is a big buzzword that I'm sure absolutely nobody on this call that's listening is going to be surprised to hear. We're putting some focus on AI, right?
Yeah.
I know that's been big in 2025 and it's even bigger in 2026. I'll be the first to admit, I'm learning about AI initiatives every single day. And
Mhm.
I'm not the best person to talk about it, right? But hiring people and also having our whole separate engineering team and our data team,
Yes.
they're working on that right now. Ultimately, we want this to be easy to use, and we technically don't even want the AHJs to have to log in and review anything. You know, we want stuff to just hum and reporting instantly, and what percentage of your high-rise buildings are compliant, or what percentage of hood systems in your jurisdiction, or hey, a really big one that we're seeing in the future, BDAs. And for those
Yeah.
that might not know what BDAs are, those are your radio coverage systems that are
Mhm.
in buildings. And one of the really important things about that system is it allows people to communicate when they're on scene and when they're out there at a building.
Operations. Yep.
If you can't communicate properly, that is a huge detriment to the situation that you may be attacking at hand. Let it be if it's a fire, or, let it be if it's a serious event that's happening in the community. So putting a lot of focus on radio coverage systems at BDAs. And one of the things we're really excited about, we've put a lot of work on our relationships and our partnerships with the authority having jurisdictions. Ultimately, that is how we get implemented in these jurisdictions, because you got language and fire codes across the country where it states that, hey, the code official has the authority to prescribe the form and format of such record keeping. So the partnerships with the AHJs, those will always be at the forefront, because you all help us get into these situations, you help us get better, and we can help you guys get better. But the focus that we are putting on the contractors and the inspection, testing, and maintenance companies in 2026, it's a game changer. And yeah, Corey,
I know. I'm
I
like,
can't, I can't, I can't do like the red siren or the spoiler alert.
Come
Soon,
on.
But
soon.
ultimately, we want to be very easy for them to
Yeah.
provide this information to you all. And we're excited to talk about it a bit more as we go further in 26. But that's a big push, because ultimately we want to be in every single city in the United States and North America, and heck, who knows, maybe there's some other things in the future as well, outside of North America. But those are some of the things, Chad, that are coming on the horizon for 2026 and the years to come. I mean, heck, the biggest news happened on what, January 6th, January 7th, Jill, when we
Yeah.
announced
When
the
we announced.
acquisition. It's like, hey, Bryce and I were working together. That was huge news. And now Jill and I are best friends.
Yeah.
Nobody ever thought that would
I
happen.
know. I know. I do.
Um,
I do want to say something to that, Nick, because this is the doing of the needs of our customers, shared customers. The not only just the consolidation, but this was not about replacing. And I want to be very clear about, something in the fire service. We mentioned it way early on. You see, these companies coming in, some are being bought out, some are going away. iRoll was the smaller entity. It made no sense to keep two separate businesses. It made the most sense for us to become one under Brycer. But this was not about replacing. I don't know if anybody paid attention, but leadership remained intact. I went from, yes, president and co-founder. I'm now executive vice president over there. My brother, who is the vice president of iRoll, is still there. All of our people are still here, and we're all Brycer. That should say a lot about, the vision that we see and also believe in, coming together. And I think that's impactful, not only again for the fire service, but also for communities as a whole. You have a lot of people at this company who believe in that mission and believe in helping keep communities and people safe. And this is one of the best ways that you can do that.
Well, and as somebody that I actually looked at both of y'all's companies, and I have my own reasons for everything, but I will say that the two of y'all's approach was very different and was very tailor-made to a different customer.
Mm-hmm.
So by coming together, I really see y'all fit in to places that and will complement each other actually very, very well, and fit two different styles of organizations, things that different stuff that I think it's going to be fantastic as y'all build out and go, and it's going to allow y'all to leverage each other significantly. So I'm
Thank you. We
excited about that
appreciate
part of
that.
it.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
we
Corey.
are too. We are too. It's been, I say it's an eye-opening experience. You have those assumptions naturally as competitors, but I've been very clear about one thing. My very first time, going in and working with the Bricer leadership and folks, I left that meeting, and again, I go back to being a little bit vulnerable and showing a little bit of humility. I was almost in tears with my brother. I said, this was the exact right move at the right time, and we couldn't be more proud. I truly, truly every day get to work with people who are so motivated and just get it. They just understand that mission, and being surrounded by people like that, it just energizes you, and it allows us to stay focused on what we need to do well, but also address what both of us weren't doing well. I mean, let's be very honest about that. We know those gaps that we have to bridge. And I think one of the best things, again, we can do as leadership is identify and accept those gaps and then do something about it. And again, that's exactly what we've done. And I think it's a very powerful step.
Well, I'm very excited to see. I know that across this country, fire departments take a lot of different shapes, sizes, and it's really hard sometimes to get software, get technology that's good for everybody. So I agree with Corey. I think based off the approaches that you'll be able to, serve any fire department across, regardless of their size, sort of jurisdictional boundaries and what they have. So I'm very excited about that. If you're down in Florida in the cold weather, you can stop by St. Lucie.
Heck yeah, we're leaving tomorrow.
And maybe I'll get a little better sneak peek when we're off camera about what you have going. We've been a customer of Bricer for so long. I think sometimes you kind of leave it be, and it'd be, I think I'm sitting here thinking, well, what a great time to meet up again and just say, what is it that we haven't been utilizing? What have we been utilizing? What's better? Because sometimes you set it and forget it. And if it's not at the forefront. So yeah, I'll invite you guys down in the warmer weather.
I think you said something extremely important that is a great way to kind of wrap this up, because it comes down to one thing, and that is people, right? We are, believe it or not, we are a data-driven relationship that you have, right? It is so important for you to have a relationship with your technology vendors so you can do just that, so we can make you better users, at least have an understanding of what's available to you. Even if you take it or leave it, it's still constantly having that relationship. And I think that is so important. And that is a really big message for anybody using technology, is to have a relationship with your vendors so we can discuss things like that. It is important to us to make sure that we are having those discussions and that people are using it the way that it's intended to be used.
I'm curious. I have a question, and this actually could be for the group. I know where Jill's travels are, and Jill and I travel a lot. And we go to a lot of events and conferences and trade shows, speaking engagements. Where are some places that you guys are going to be going soon? Chad, Corey, Kevin. I know there's some cool and fun events coming up in both of your areas, but I'm curious where you guys might be heading here soon for events wise.
I think the next stop for me is going to be SIPSI in Orlando, and then the Next Gen Tech Summit Round 2 in FDIC will be on the radar.
Awesome.
So wherever they let me go.
Yeah, I'm probably not making too much travel this year. We're
Oh man.
tied up
We'll
and
come to
busy.
you. We'll come visit you. How about that?
I'll,
Absolutely.
I'll build you an AI Corey, and then you
Oh,
can
I love that.
you
I
can
love
go.
that.
We'll just leave
Chad
them
and I will teach on AI all day long, so we're good on that.
Well, good thing you asked. I mean, one thing within the Tech Council, one, we are launching a new Tech Council website. So for all Tech Council members, and there's also different ways that corporate partners and really any .gov.org.edu members are allowed to be in the Tech Council. But we do have an events page in there that I think currently has 33 upcoming events across the world that are relevant to all things fire safety and technology. So that website will be live next week. We're kind of meeting with the Tech Council. So I mean, if you're listening and you're interested in about the
Awesome.
Tech Council community, the Tech Council events, the resource sharing, I mean, that's the whole point of why Tech Council launched Tech Talk Tuesday. And then selfishly on my side with the smart firefighting community, simultaneously creating a new website that is expected to be live as well next week. That's kind of got a similar vibe of events page and kind of community building. So if you're interested in the tech community, please reach out, as well as within the smart firefighting community. One's kind of more internal to IFC, the other one's kind of for the industry as a whole. But it's got events all up in there. So, I mean, as far as what I'm going, I unfortunately cannot make TSI Indiana, which I know is going on tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yep.
That's where
no
we're at
shame.
right now.
That's where we're
I know.
at. Yeah.
Thanks for holding it down. I know it's gonna be great, and props to Trevor Wilson for putting in such a great
Yes,
effort there for all that.
love him. Great guy.
But yeah, I think if you are around Indiana, obviously FDIC is sort of this big known mothership of tech events and training, so that's a big one coming up. But then there's all the other local ones. So, but I enjoyed just kind of being a fly on the wall. I've been new into the third party reporting conversation in the past year or so, and kind of just taking notes about, again, how we can continue the storytell and bring this to life. But Nick and Jill, I'm just impressed, and kudos to the humility and the checking the egos at the door with just kind of figuring out and putting the fire service first.
Yeah.
Your team has done that, and my only problem with you both is that you're Bear fans, but we get over that. We
That's
look past
okay.
it.
That's
We look
okay.
past. It's not even the
Yeah.
problem. It's good to have
Yeah.
fun rivalry. You guys got us this year, but no, I thank you. Chad and Corey. I guess kind of leaving. We're 2 minutes past, but kind of final thoughts. I mean, my biggest takeaway from this kind of merger is just the relentless focus on listening to first responders about how they're actually using it to create better communication between AHJs and the fire marshals and the building people who own the buildings and the building owners, and just making that a seamless process to where you don't even see or feel or think about the software. It's just kind of there helping facilitate it. So, and that comes from just copious ongoing conversations and making of 100 little tweaks. So kudos to your team, and I'm excited to see where the technology will be in 6 months to a year with the kind of collective effort. So that's my sort of takeaway. Corey, Chad, final mic drop thoughts, moment, any ideas that we can leave everyone here with today?
I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. These Tech Talk Tuesdays always get some really good industry partners and some great fire service people in the door, and talk about these ideas and sort of thought leadership. And on the part of third party reporting, if you don't have it, look into it. Again, the sooner that you get into it, the easier it is. The really heavy data lifts and all of that come with size. So it might be behoove you to get started sooner than later.
Awesome.
And I would just say I apologize to everybody listening to this that you guys got the B team. Unless we did a really good job, then you need to tell Scott and Will that to move on. So thank y'all, and
Yeah,
looking
thank
forward to
you
the next
guys.
one. And I echo what Chad had to say about find ways to use technology to your benefit, and it is a communication tool to bring people together and to streamline it. So
Thank
Yep.
you.
go from there.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure. I did share Jill's email and my email as well in the chat. I don't
Thank
know,
you.
Kevin, who monitors that. Corey, it's been a pleasure. Chad's been a pleasure.
Yeah, for
Kevin,
sure.
thank you guys very much for the opportunity. This has been a lot
Yeah,
of
this
fun.
was a lot of fun. Really appreciate
I'll
the
add
opportunity.
the links and emails into the LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and just thank you for all the new participants who are throwing in comments. It helps kind of guide the chat to make it even better. So, again, first and third Tuesday of every month, we'll keep this rolling. Appreciate the opportunity, Nick and Jill. Keep up
Yeah.
the good work. Chad
Thank
and
you.
Corey, as always, appreciate what you do for the fire service. And
Yeah, thank you guys.